Now is the time to relax your body and mind. A major yoga retreat happening at the Moody Gardens Hotel, October 31st through November 2nd. That's Halloween weekend. It's not spooky though. This year's retreat theme, Keys to Freedom and Ease Through Yoga. Joining me now, the man leading this entire retreat, instructor and author, Doug Keller. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me.
Thanks, Jared. Glad to be with you.
Awesome. Now, Doug, for those who may be unfamiliar with yoga, can you tell us more about what yoga actually is? You know, I've never actually done yoga before. And what can it do for your body?
What we're doing in the retreat is the stuff that you most often see in the media, people doing physical stretches or exercises, and with that breathing practices, concentration and relaxation. And it does a whole host of things for the body. I've been lately looking at it in terms of how it helps us with the process of healthy aging. Of course, there's at any point of life, we can start with taking care of our bodies so that we go through the process of aging in a healthy and optimal way. And just a couple of the benefits that I can focus upon for you in this particular form of exercise is that when you work with the muscles in the way that you do in yoga practice, it has an anti-inflammatory effect upon the body. A lot of the pains that people experience with age, joint pain, muscle pain, even different forms of inflammation and digestion, all of these are progressive conditions that come with age. When you work with the muscles and with the breath in the way that you do in yoga, it tends to reduce inflammation in the body and to reduce pain problems. So it increases your strength, your flexibility, your power of movement, your cardiovascular health in terms of the relationship between your breath and the activity of the body. And it's very calming and centering to the nervous system. It's a good reset for the nervous system in an environment in which we find ourselves really overstimulated by everything that's going on the outside. So it's a great way to come back to your center and bring that centered quality with you back into the world once you finish the retreat.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I heard you mentioning about joint issues and all that stuff. I just turned 40, so I'm starting to get the little, knees are a little
we all do.
There. So that's awesome to hear about yoga and how that can actually help with that. Now we're talking about the body. Yoga, it doesn't just help the body though. It also helps the mind as well.
Yes, absolutely. First of all, it helps cognitive health in the sense of keeping the brain responsive, retentive to memory, and present and responsive to our environment as opposed to reactive. A lot of the problems that we encounter are from the fact that we react to what happens to us rather than responding to what happens to us. And there's a big difference emotionally and in terms of how it's taxing upon the nervous system. So with yoga, you start to join your awareness to your movement, to your breath. It's through going through the physical practice that you find yourself coming more easily to a centered and calm place by the end of practice. And you're much more aware of your breath patterns, you're aware of the reactive patterns of the mind, and you can overcome those patterns in a way that allows you, again, to be more responsive to your environment in a way that's uplifting and nourishing to your own heart and to your own well-being. So it covers really all of those bases.
That sounds fantastic because, doing my job, my mind's always going 90 to nothing every single minute. So like yoga can help you just kind of, I guess, like clear out your mind and just kind of help you find, I guess, peace a little bit maybe.
And even in the midst of activity, when you're at work or dealing with the kids or anything else, dealing with traffic, you're in the midst of all this stuff going on. And it's not that the mind is absolutely peaceful, but there's less noise in the mind. So you're much more present to what happens and responsive to it in an appropriate way. So it's finding peacefulness in the midst of activity, even when you yourself are very active and very engaged. There's a clarity that comes with the practice of yoga that carries forth and spills over into your life in a way that makes your life just that much more enjoyable.
That sounds very nice to hear. Now, you've been doing this yoga retreat at Moody Gardens for several years. What can guests expect from the retreat experience, both on and off the mat?
First of all, on the mat, it's a nice, straightforward experience. It's not going to be a fast-paced or heavy workout. It's a chance to experience the practice of yoga at a pace that fits you. So you can be with the practice, understand it, feel it without feeling pushed or rushed. And that helps you to remember what you've done and what you've experienced so you can take it beyond the retreat and make it part of your practice. Even if you take classes, or even when you take classes with other teachers, you can bring that additional knowledge into how you practice, and you find you're that much more present to the practice that you do. Along with being in the class and on the mat and doing the practices we do, you're going to be in a great setting where there's a lot to do and a lot to see. There are a lot of resources available in and around Moody Gardens that I take part in too, with the Aquarium and the other exhibits. And so there's a lot of ways in which to relax by the pool, be active, go out and do stuff. And so it's a nice balance between doing and seeing, and also being in a kind of retreat setting that keeps your center so you can fully enjoy the retreat.
That brings me into my next question. Like, when doing yoga, the setting seems to be very important. You don't want to do it like in traffic. What do you like about the Moody Gardens Hotel setting?
It's a nice space in which to do yoga, and it's always a nice group of people to practice with. There's really something to be said for a group energy in the room that really supports you and brings you forward. It's much easier to practice with other people than to be in front of a yoga video, or even to be in a class where often the classes focus upon just giving people a workout. This is not about just getting a workout. It's about really experiencing the feeling and benefits of doing the yoga practice in a mutually supportive setting, a non-competitive setting in which everybody's there to have the same experience and have the same kind of refreshing and renewing experience of yoga in doing it.
So what's one part of, the retreat's 3 days long. What's one part of the retreat that you think people will be talking about after they leave?
It tends to really change people's experience of what yoga is about in a way that makes them much more open to continuing a practice of yoga. And the retreat is actually attended by both teachers and students that they bring, as well as people that are new to yoga. So everybody leaves with something. The teachers leave with some new inspiration, new ideas for how to approach their classes. When they bring their students with them, they can get together and really talk about what they'd like to be brought into the practice, or what they'd like to be brought into the class to make the class that much more rich for them. For people that are not familiar with yoga and often have ideas about yoga that make them hesitant to show up for a class, they'll find it's really not as difficult, as not in your face, as not a pushy experience. And so it's something that you can really incorporate into your life. A common misconception about yoga is that it's about flexibility. It's going to be known that way because it's often, publicized in magazines with really stretchy people doing stretchy positions. First of all, a central benefit of the yoga practice is for your joints, because this is where we experience pain and difficulty and deterioration over time. Our muscles serve the well-being of our joints, and yoga is really about maintaining the health and well-being of the joints, reducing inflammation, and maintaining the free movement of the joints without deterioration. We do work with the muscles, and rather than thinking about flexibility, it's worth thinking about muscles as being more like a spring. If your spring is too tight, if you do exercises that tighten up your muscles a lot, but like doing weightlifting, which is good, and other activities that increase tightness in the muscle, the spring actually moves less. It can actually limit your movement to the point where people get kind of muscle bound. By the same token, if you take a spring and overstretch it, it loses its power, in the sense that when you take a spring and stretch it, it stores energy so that when you release the spring, it snaps back into place. What we're doing with muscles in yoga is kind of like oiling and maintaining the well-being of the spring. So when you stretch and contract your muscle, it increases your power of movement. Again, if you overstretch a spring, it loses its power and you lose your power of movement. If you don't stretch a spring enough, you end up tight and bound in the body. In both cases, your joints are affected. So what you can expect is to work with the muscles and the joints in a way that increases your feeling of freedom of movement in the body, your feeling of strength and resilience in the muscles, and at the same time, freedom of movement and the sense of flexibility. And this includes not just the physical movement of the body itself, but also freedom in your own breath. Our breath patterns tend to get very restricted, and that affects our state of mind. The more tight our breathing patterns, the more tight the mind becomes, the more open and relaxed and natural our breathing patterns, the more open and relaxed the feeling of the mind is, as well as our emotional states. And so we're really coming together to have an experience of that, of how that experience of freedom in the body includes the freedom of the movement of the body, the relaxed, free sense of the breath, and the relaxed, open state of the mind that, again, we bring back into our life as we go into the world. It's meant to be an experience that everybody can participate in at a level that feels comfortable to you without feeling pushed, without feeling overly competitive with other people in the room, something that you can really take and nourish for yourself. So it really should not be threatening to any participant, but rather offer an encouragement to everybody that comes to the training and to the experience.
That's great to hear because it sounds like something instead of being, like you said, competitive in a room, because I'd be a beginner and, I'm not very flexible, so my movements are not very like smooth or anything, so it's good to hear that, you would say this yoga retreat would be great for experts, but also beginners as well.
Very much for beginners, and experts always like to return to beginner's mind, which means as much as you're settled into a way of practice that really works for you, to be open to a new experience or a new approach to the practice, which being in the company of beginners, it's kind of an eye-opener to understand what works for them, also opens up keys in your own body to new approaches to your own practice. So the experts and the practitioners can come with a beginner's mind, and we're not going to be doing just beginners poses like lie on the floor and roll around a little bit. We'll be doing classical yoga poses, but I also recognize people's limitations in doing these poses, especially if they're new to them. I've developed quite a number of keys for how to get your body to unlock and be able to move into these poses without a feeling of difficulty or conflict in doing the pose. And everybody's going to have their own experience. And again, the biggest limitation for people in yoga classes, they look at the person next to them and say, well, I'm not doing that, or I can't do that. It's not about doing what everybody else is doing in the class. It's about settling into the experience of what you're feeling as you do the practice for yourself, and that encourages you to move forward. So it should be a lot of light bulb movements for everybody across the spectrum in a way that is quite memorable to you and easy to understand and to take back with you.
So what would you say to someone who may be, I've never really done like a yoga retreat or a retreat usually, who's nervous maybe about joining a retreat for the first time?
I think of it as kind of an experience plus. I mean, everybody needs to get away for a weekend. Be in a nice environment where there are things to do. You can relax, not have to worry about stuff. You can go out and do what you like. Along with that experience of just being in a nice resort setting, there's the addition of the class that just adds an extra level of peace to that experience and an extra level of engagement and something new to do. We all go on a retreat, we take a weekend and go somewhere to have a new experience, to get out of our settled patterns that we have at home and experience something new or see it in a new way. Having yoga added on top of everything else that you can do in the resort setting just opens your eyes that much more and allows you to enjoy that experience. Sometimes it gets stressful to just sit and try to relax in a retreat setting, figuring out what you're doing next. It's nice to have a nice schedule to show up for, participate, and then you can go out and refreshed and go to dinner, go to lunch, go see something new, and just be really open to the experience. So it all fits together really nicely and really well.
My last question, for those, who are, you have been with yoga for years, you're an expert at it. What made you originally decide to get into yoga? What, we all have different hobbies and stuff that we love. What drew you to it, and what made you decide to write books about it and all that stuff?
Yeah. For myself, I actually started more from a spiritual perspective. I was raised Protestant, went to Catholic colleges, was very interested in the universal spiritual experience that draws people close to something greater within themselves. And I wanted to explore that more deeply. And I got into yoga first as a practice with the mind to center and calm the mind to come to that kind of state and that kind of peace. And along the way, I got introduced to the physical practice, which is largely what we're doing at the retreat. And I understood how necessary that was as being part and parcel of that peace that I was looking for. Originally, I didn't understand the connection between having flexible hamstrings and having a peaceful mind. But I started to understand in ways that are more complicated than I can explain right here. There is a connection between the two. As you achieve peace and freedom in your body, you start to experience greater peace and freedom in your mind. And so as I explored the physical practice to understand how that worked more and more deeply, I of course got into teaching it, and I started to study the body more and more to understand how to help people with the obstacles that they face in their own body. Inflexibility, pain problems, different kind of limitations. We all have these in our own way. And so part of my teaching is to offer keys for people to find that freedom within their own body while accepting their body as it is at the same time, and understand how you can achieve peace within yourself as you are through the simple practices that yoga offers in connection with everything else that you do in your life, other forms of exercise, other forms of recreation. It all comes together in one nice big package that just makes your life that much fuller and that much more enjoyable.
I just feel at peace talking to you right now. I mean, it just sounds like a great experience, 3 full days and all of that stuff, and just kind of, kind of mind and body, especially, I told you earlier, just my mind is always running 90 to nothing every single time. So it's just
That's its job. That's its job. We need to teach the mind to learn how to take a break, coffee break, snack break,
most
peace
definitely
break,
a yoga break,
a
So
yoga break.
yes, most definitely. Just my friends do yoga as well, and they always say, how relaxed they feel afterwards. So that's one of those great things that I'm definitely going to have to try it. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
yoga instructor and author Doug Keller. If you would like a relaxation weekend, come out to a tropical retreat at the Moody Gardens Hotel. The yoga retreat is again happening October 31st through November 2nd, Halloween weekend. You can get tickets, you can get hotel packages right now at moodygardens.org. Thank you so much, Doug, for taking the time to talk with me.
Look forward to seeing you there.